Now, Finland has announced it will reopen 2 crossings on its border with Russia. In November, Helsinki shut all of its 8 border crossings with Russia after accusing Moscow of encouraging migrants from third countries to cross into Finland. Helsinki says this was in retaliation for its decision to join NATO. The Kremlin has denied that. The Council of Europe has asked Finland to ensure it keeps its doors open for migrants seeking protection. The closures meant that many Russian speakers living in Finland were cut off from their relatives. DW's Natalia Smolentceva met a family who were affected.
Hello, Dad.
Hello?
How are you? You sound cheerful.
It's all the same.
Instead of hugs and kisses, now only telephone calls. Just 200 kilometers separate Yevgeny from his father. Yevgeny and his family live in the Finnish city of Lappeenranta. His dad across the border in St. Petersburg. When Finland shut down its border with Russia, Yevgeny didn't know when he would see his father again. His dad was recently diagnosed with cancer and suffered a stroke.
I'm very worried about his health. What if he gets worse now and I can't be with him? I'm even thinking I would have to leave my family here and drive through Murmansk in the north or fly via Istanbul. I don't know how to get to him.
Finland says it's closed its border with Russia after a rise in asylum seekers arriving from third countries. Helsinki blamed Moscow for orchestrating a migration crisis in retaliation for Finland joining NATO.
Our aim is to say to Russia that this is not, we don't accept this, it's unacceptable, and it needs to be stopped.
Raja Joosepi in Lapland, 1,000 kilometers away from Helsinki, was the last border crossing to close. A DW crew went there the day before. The situation there was calm. In the last 2 days, no asylum seekers had tried to cross the border into Finland. Journalists were only shown a pile of bicycles allegedly left by those who had already crossed. Yet the Finnish government decided to shut down the border completely. It was a big blow for nearly 100,000 Russian speakers in Finland. They mostly live in the south, in cities like Lappeenranta and Kotka. Around 5% of Lappeenranta citizens are Russian speakers. Russian border is only 25 kilometers away, and many have friends and relatives on the other side. Yevgeny and his wife Victoria had been hoping that the border would open again soon, to allow them to spend the holidays with their family.
I really hope for a Christmas miracle. I believe in it, and I think it will happen.
For now, they keep in touch with their family over the phone every day.
And I'm joined now by DW's Natalia Smolentceva, who filed that report for us. And for more on this story, good to see you, Natalia. So it appears that there is now an option for families to reunite. Can you tell us, how have the Finnish authorities explained their decision to reopen these 2 border crossings?
So the decision is really not to reopen the 2, but to keep 6 out of 8 closed. And that's important because they also stress that if there will be more migrants or some other security threat at the border, they can shut it down from one day to another. So for those families, it's actually a little bit of relief, but not too much, because, you know, you can go back to Russia and then get stuck there. And I've talked to some of the people who appeared to the report, or those who protested also in Lappeenranta and in Helsinki, and they say they still don't see their voices being heard by Finnish authorities, and they really fear that the border can be closed anytime soon.
OK, let's look more closely at these claims that Russia is pushing migrants towards its border with Finland. We're going to take a look at what the Estonian Defence Minister had to say about it.
This is fully state orchestrated, fully. Once again, as I said, in Russia there is a border zone up to 10 kilometers. You cannot enter without the permission of FSB. So, and by accident, all these hundreds of migrants are ending up in one border crossing point in Finland with the bicycles during the winter time. Come on. Seriously? You're coming from Yemen, you're coming from Syria, you're coming from Somalia, and at the end of the day, you will end up somewhere in high north in the border crossing point with Finland. And this is not state orchestrated. Not very, plausible.
Okay, not very plausible. But is there actually any evidence to back up these claims?
These are very strong words, actually, from Estonian government, but also from Finnish government, and they have to be taken with a grain of salt because this situation is not nearly as severe as the situation we've seen on the border with Belarus and Poland in 2021. We've been to the border ourselves, and there have been no migrants on the day we were there. There have been migrants coming on other days, but also the numbers are not so big. And also the question is how these migrants are going there and whether, to what extent are the Russian authorities actually to blame for them, or are they coming there in search for a better life in Europe?
I mean, could we be asking the question, wouldn't a lot of these migrants, have wanted to go to Finland anyway? Wouldn't they have made their way to the border by themselves anyway?
Well, certainly many of those migrants are searching for a better life in Europe, in EU, and some of them have already been trying to cross border elsewhere, like in Belarus, for instance, and they've heard in social media or from smugglers that the border between Russia and Finland is an easy one to open, and, there have been reports that they've been helped, but I think mostly by smugglers. They've been driven to the border, given bicycles to cross the border because you can only cross on a vehicle. But Russian border guards have definitely led them through the border, but that has to do with the agreement between Russia and Finland that existed before Russia attacked Ukraine and ceased to exist afterwards. According to this agreement, they had to check the visas, and after that, not. So there is also a lot of little details like that. Other than that, we don't have any proof, so to say, that Russian authorities deliberately send migrants there. Even now, there are reports that say that they actually might be recruiting these migrants for the war in Ukraine.
I wanted to ask you about that because there have been the reports that Russia has been, as you say, trying to recruit migrants from the border to get them to sign up for the fights in Ukraine. I mean, is there any evidence to back that up?
Well, those migrants are usually on the short visas in Russia, and they've tried to cross the border several times, and when it didn't work, the border is now shut down. They overstay their visas and they can be easily detained. So now, according to the reports from BBC, but also from some Russian media, there are several dozens or up to several hundreds people who are actually detained there for overstaying the visa. And there are cases when those people are approached from some people in military uniform and asked to serve for the state in order not to be sent back to their homelands. And some people are facing persecution there. They are fleeing from the war. They're fleeing from very devastated economic situation, and they can't read Russian, so they might sign those papers. And in several cases, journalists obtain the papers that actually say that they will serve for the Russian military. So we can't say how many of these cases are there. It's certainly not a massive scale, but looking at what Russia is doing now in Ukraine, the situation doesn't look very good. And with the upcoming elections for Putin, it won't be a very smart move to call for another mobilization. So Russian authorities might consider using migrants somewhere else.
All right. DW's Natalia Smolentceva, thank you so much for your reporting there.